Good afternoon, friends. Welcome to the lecture of Real Analysis 1. In previous lectures, we have seen the condition of integrability of a given function in terms of two different forms, first form and second form. And by using this condition of integrability, we have seen how the product, quotient, addition, difference of the integrable functions is integrable. Particularly in the last lecture, we have seen the integrability of an absolute function. That is, whenever f is bounded and integrable on closed interval a b, then we have proved that the modulus of the function mod of f is also bounded and integrable. Also, we have proved that modulus of an integration a to b f dx is less than or equals to integration of the modulus. Okay, this is the first theorem we have proved. In the second theorem, we have proved that whenever a function f is bounded and integrable, then the square function is also integrable on the given interval a to b. Okay, as a corollary to this theorem, we have proved that whenever the two functions are integrable, then the product is also integrable. Actually, we have proved that the product of two integrable functions is also integrable, but here we have proved this by using a previous theorem as a corollary. Okay. Now, in today's lecture, as I have told you, that we are going to discuss the new sum with the help of which we are going to find out the integrability of the given function. Therefore, the today's point we want to understand is integral as a limit of Riemann sum. Integral as a limit of sum. Okay, we have seen that how an integration is expressed as the limit of sum in the first lecture itself. Earlier, what we have done, we have two different sums with us, Darboux upper sum and Darboux lower sum. Actually, these two sums we have obtained through capital Mi and small mi as the suprema and the infima of the given function over the ith subintervals. But here we can observe very easily these two numbers, capital Mi and small mi, under the consideration are not necessarily the function values. These are the function values only if the function is continuous. If the function is not continuous, these two values are not necessarily the function values. Therefore, instead of taking two different sums, okay, and reach towards the actual area bounded by the given function or the actual integration, Riemann has developed a new sum called as a Riemann sum. Where instead of this capital Mi and small mi, we are going to introduce arbitrary function value. We are going to introduce the arbitrary function value. Therefore, first we will see a definition of Riemann is bounded. Surely boundedness is essential in order to check the integrability of the given function. Let a function f is bounded on closed interval a to b. Okay, let capital P be partition of the given interval a to b. Okay. Next point is choose the points t1, t2, tn such that ti lies between xi minus 1 to xi. Okay, what is the short meaning? This ti is belonging to the closed interval xi minus 1 to xi. Correct? Okay, and so now I am going to define Riemann sum, which is denoted by S here. Okay, this is neither lower neither upper. This is only a sum, and it is defined as summation I equals to 1 to n f of ti into delta xi. F of ti into delta xi is called Riemann sum. sum of f over closed interval a to b relative to t, relative to the partition t. Okay, now I'll just try to write these two sums we have seen previously here. UPF is summation capital Mi delta xi, that of LPF is small mi delta xi. What is the change we have done? Simply these two values, suprema and infima of the given function in ith subinterval was replaced by arbitrary function value. Okay, what this Ti is? Ti is a point of the ith subinterval lies between xi minus 1 to xi. Okay, Ti may take xi minus 1, Ti may take xi value also. This is the definition of a Riemann sum. Now we will have a look on the geometrical interpretation, how the sum is going to look like. Okay, let me take a continuous function to explain this sum. Okay, let this be a sum. Also, let this be a function, continuous function for the sake of understanding. So the function y equal to f of x. These are my sum. Okay, now let me select the interval. Let this be a closed interval a to b. Okay, sum is being defined as summation I equals to 1 to n f of ti delta xi. Therefore, let me define the partition of the sum first. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Okay, then what is the partition we have selected? This a is equal to x0. Let this be x1, x2, x3 and b is equal to x4. Be the partition of the given curve, given function. F of ti we want to select. Now what ti is? Ti be an arbitrary point of the ith subinterval. Therefore, for every subinterval, let us mark the points ti's. Okay. Therefore, for the first interval, let me mark this point as t1. Let this be t2. Let this be t3. Not necessarily a midpoint. It may be any point of the given interval. These are the points I have marked out. Okay. Then the summation is f of ti into delta xi. If this is my position t1, where will be f of t1? Somewhere here will be f of t1. This be a position, no? Correct? F of t1 into delta x1. First sum. Here let me write the summation also. For this particular example, the sum will be f of t1 into delta x1, f of t2 into delta x2 plus f of t3 into delta x3 added with f of t4 into delta x4. Now this is a t4 I have selected. Means whatever is this first sum is generated, it's actually area of the rectangle with height f of t1 and breadth delta x1. Now this delta x1 is known to us. What is the height? F of t1 will be a height. Correct na? F of t1 into this will be a breadth. Delta x1 will be a breadth. Then what will be the area covered? May I say this will be the area covered? Correct na? Let me denote it by green shading. Is this point clear to everyone? Now here you can say this shaded area is, some area is above the curve, some area is below the curve. Means it is the just like a combination of upper sum and lower sum. Okay, let us go for the next one. In the next, the sum is f of t1 into delta x2. If this will be the area of the rectangular region with height f of t1, breadth delta x2. Let us mark f of t2 somewhere here. It is f of t2, correct? Okay. Therefore, what will be the area covered? The area covered will be of this height and length has delta x2. Therefore, let me draw the region. Let me shade the region. This will be f of t2. Okay. let us go to a third point. The third point is T3. And where is f of T3? Somewhere here is my f of T3. Okay. Here it is f of T3. Okay. Therefore, what will be the area? This is width height f of T3 and breadth delta x3. This is the area covered by the third summation. And finally, for T4, this is f of T4. Okay, here it is f of T4. And what is the area covered with height f of T4 and breadth delta x4. Okay, therefore this is going to represent your Riemann sum. This is going to represent your Riemann sum. Where this Riemann sum is, you can call a combination of upper sum and lower sum, because some part of the region is above the curve, some part of the shaded region is below the curve. Okay. Any difficulty up to this?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
This is Riemann sum. Okay. Now, similarly, as we have done the suggestions or guess or a theorem, we have proved that whenever we increase the number of points in the given partition, upper sum decreases. That is, it is trying to reach to the actual area bounded by the curve. Similarly, as we increase the number of points in the given partition, then the lower sum increases. That is, again, it is trying to reach towards the actual area bounded by the curve. Same thing happens in this Riemann sum also. Whatever is the area above the curve, it will come towards the curve. Whatever is the area below the curve, it will go or it will increase. It will go towards the actual area. Means this is just like a combination of the upper sum and lower sum. Okay. I will show you this on the internet, Wikipedia. The animation will help you to understand. Let me share my screen. Is the screen visible to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Now just look at this. Okay. This is the sum. Riemann sum. Okay. It is some area is above the curve, some area is below the curve. This is just like a combination. And here the animation was shown. See, here is the animation. Third animation you have to concentrate. Okay, this is middle sum. Actually, in Riemann sum, one can make the partition left sum, right sum, and middle sum. Left sum means the point was taken to be the first point of the subinterval. Right sum means the ti value, the point ti is selected as the second endpoint of the interval. Middle sum means we can select any ti in between the ith subinterval. And for our syllabus, we are considering middle sum. Okay. Therefore, here in the middle sum, it was showing the animation that if we increase the number of points, how that middle sum is going to reach towards the actual area. Okay, this animation helps us to understand that how by increasing the number of points in the given partition, we are going to have the actual area bounded by the curve. Okay, and if it will reach towards the actual area, then we say that the function is integrable. If it is not, we say that the function is not integrable. Okay, first thing you have to be clear that this ti selected will be an arbitrary point of the given interval. It may be the first point, it may be the second end point, or it may be any point in the arbitrary interval. If I take this left end point of the given interval, the sum is called as left. If I any value in between the interval, then this is the middle sum. Okay. Now, whenever we say that this SPF converges to some value A, where A is the area, as mu p tends to 0 or as n tends to infinity, then the function is said to be integrable, otherwise not. Okay, here I will write. It may be noted that Ti are arbitrary and Ti can take any point of delta xi or ith subinterval. Ith subinterval. Okay. Now we will say, we will check when this sum is going to converge. Okay. Therefore here we write that, we say that SPF converges to, SPF means this Riemann sum converges to A. Converges to A is some fixed amount which is actually the area, as mu p tends to 0, that is limit mu p tends to 0, SPF is exactly equals to A. In other words, I can write, if for every epsilon greater than 0, there exists delta greater than 0 such that mod of SPF minus A less than epsilon for every partition with norm mu p tends to 0 means this norm value must be less than delta, and for every choice of points in every choice of points Ti in xi minus 1 to xi. Whenever this Riemann sum converges to A, where A is the area bounded by the curve, we say that the function is integrable. If it is not, the function is not integrable. This is what the simple conclusion is. Therefore, let us write it in terms of the definition, and we are going to call this as the second definition. And what will be the first definition of integrability? This was given by Darbox. Can anyone repeat? First definition of integrability. Students, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Can anyone repeat what is the first definition of integrability?
A necessary and sufficient condition for integrability of a bounded function is that to every epsilon greater than 0, there corresponds delta greater than 0, such that for every partition P of a closed interval AB with norm mu pf less than delta, UPF minus MPF is less than epsilon.
Good. But this is not actually a definition. This is the condition for the integrability of the function. Okay. We have two different forms of conditions of integrability we have seen. The definition is actually very simple. No? Whenever upper integral is equal to lower integral, then it is said to be integrable. That is called as the Darbox condition of integrability. Right? This is our first definition. Now we will write this as a second definition, and the definition is a function here is said to be integrable on closed interval AB if limit SPF exists as mu p tends to 0. Mu p tends to 0 is equivalent to n tends to infinity. Correct now? Because if the norm value has to tend to 0, norm is the length of largest subinterval of the given partition. Therefore, if this norm is tending to 0, this is possible if we increase the number of points in the refinement. Then then limit SPF mu p tends to 0 is exactly equals to the integration a to b f dx. Integration f a to b f dx means whatever we have written here, that if this SPF converges to a fixed value, that limit exists, then that a fixed value is nothing but the area bounded by the curve, that is the integration of the given curve. The same definition we can write by replacing up tends to 0 to n tends to infinity. Therefore, let me put this as a note. Up tends to 0 can be replaced by n tends to infinity definition in above definition, that is limit n tends to infinity SPF is equal to integration a to b f dx. Both the definitions are equivalent. Okay. If students were having any difficulty about the Riemann sum, you please ask me. Otherwise, we will move towards the next part. Okay. What is done simply that capital Mi and small mi, whichever we have taken, okay, was replaced by an arbitrary function value, because twice we are doing the same process. First we are finding upper sum, then upper integral. Then we are doing the same thing by lower sum, only replacing capital Mi by small mi. That is, the suprema value of the function will be replaced by infima value of the function over the ith sub-interval, and was same process we were repeating. Means we were doing twice the process. That of in the Riemann sum, it was taken arbitrarily. Instead of suprema and infima, it was an arbitrary function value. And in the animation, this exactly giving us the area of the curve if the function is integrable. Okay. So one thing to keep in mind is simply capital Mi, small mi was replaced by arbitrary function values, because this capital Mi and small mi are not necessarily the function values. Those will be the function values only if the function is continuous. Therefore, taking this point into mind, Riemann has developed a new sum, and the sum is defined to be a Riemann sum. Okay. Therefore, in this Riemann sum, if we plot it on the graph paper, some part of the region, shaded region, is above the curve, some part of the shaded region is below curve. Therefore, one can consider this to be a combination of upper sum and lower sum. And whenever we increase the number of points in this partition, that is, whenever we were interested in taking the refinement, this shaded region is going nearer and nearer to the actual area bounded by the curve. Okay, and this is our definition, and is called as a second definition of integrability. Limit SPF exists as mu p tends to 0 or n tends to infinity, then that limit must be equal to the integration of the given function. Now, as we are defining two different definitions for the integrability, now the next point we will show that both the definitions of integrability are equivalent to one another. And whenever we are proving the equivalence of any two statements, what we were doing? We are proving the equivalence of the statement by proving 1 implies 2, 2 implies 1. 1 implies and implied by 2 rather. Okay. Now here also, in order to prove the two definitions of integrability are equivalent, we will say, we will prove that definition 1 implies definition 2, definition 2 implies definition 1. Okay. Therefore, the first step we will follow, the definition 1 implies definition 2. Equivalence of two definitions of integrability. Equivalence of two definitions of integrability. In the first part, we will prove definition 1 implies definition 2. Okay, what we want to prove under this? we will assume the Darboux definition of integrability, and we will prove the Raymond's definition of integrability. If what should I assume under Darboux definition of integrability? Can anyone tell me? What should be my assumption? Yes, students. I hope I am clearly audible. Hello.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Audible, na? As no one is responding, I feel conscious. What should be my assumption? Darboux condition of integrability will be the assumption, and we will prove Raymond's condition of integrability or Raymond's definition of integrability. Means the assumption will be both the upper integral and lower integrals are same, and we will prove this condition, that limit SPF exists. That is this one. Limit SPF is equals to integration. Okay. Therefore, let me write the assumption. Let a bounded function F be integrable according to first definition. So, what should be my assumption? Upper integral a to b f dx is equal to lower integral a to b f dx is equal to integration a to b f dx. This is the assumption. Okay, and our aim is to prove the Raymond's condition of integrability. Now, in order to prove Raymond's condition of integrability, we are going to make use of the Darboux theorem. Therefore, first let me write the Darboux theorem. Let epsilon be any positive number. By Darboux theorem, there exists delta greater than 0 such that for every partition P with norm P less than delta we have. Whether anyone remembers the Darboux statement? UPF is less than by upper integral f dx plus epsilon. But as we are assuming the function is integrable, therefore let me write upper integral is actual integration. This is f dx plus epsilon. Let me call this as statement number 1. Similarly, LPF is a
Greater than lower integral minus epsilon.
Good. Minus epsilon. Again, this lower integral we will write actual integration because we have assumed that. Okay. And let me call this as statement number 2. See, anyhow we want to convert this upper sum and lower sums to the Raymond sum in order to prove this kind of statement. Okay. This is actually equivalent to write. May I say this limit SPF is equals to integration is equivalent to write SPF minus integration a to b f dx less than epsilon whenever norm p less than delta. Correct now? Therefore, the aim is to prove this. Okay, and we have this point is in our hand. Now we will try to involve SPF in between UPF and LPF. Therefore, let us start with an arbitrary point Pi. If Pi is an arbitrary point of xi minus 1 to xi, we have what we will have the relation between capital Mi, small mi and f of ti. F of ti is an arbitrary value of the function. Mi is the suprema of the function in the subinterval. Small mi is the infima. Can anyone tell me a relation between these three terms?
Less than equal to.
Good.
Less
Mi is
than.
less than or equals to f of ti. What about here? F of ti is
Again less than equal
Again less than equals to.
again less than or equals to capital. Arbitrary function value always lies between the infima and the suprema of the function. Why we have written this? Because we want to introduce SPF, okay, in between UPF and LPF. Now, how should I convert these values to sums? What is the step in my hand? How can I convert this capital Mi to upper sum?
Multiplying by
Multiple
delta
by
xi
delta xi.
and summation.
Good. Multiply by delta xi. I is equals to 1 to n and adding over I. Correct? Therefore, what this first sum will be? Summation I equals to 1 to n small mi delta xi less than or equals to summation I equals to 1 to n f of ti into delta xi, which is again less than or equals to summation capital I equals to 1 to n capital Mi into delta xi. Correct? Now, what this sum is? Left side LPF. Correct, na? Students are requested to mute themselves. And what is this middle sum? Middle sum?
SPF.
This is SPF. And this last one is
UPF.
UPF. Okay. And let me call this as statement number 3. Now look at 1, 2 and 3. We have written UPF is less than by integration plus epsilon. That of LPF is greater by integration minus epsilon. And here, may I include those two? That this LPF is greater than by integration minus epsilon and UPF is less than by integration plus epsilon. Therefore, I will write from 1, 2 and 3. From 1, 2 and 3. Integration a to b f dx minus epsilon strictly less by LPF less than or equals to SPF less than or equals to UPF and is strictly less by integration plus epsilon. Correct, na? Now what I will do, I will just remove LPF and UPF because I want to concentrate on SPF simply. Therefore, to the next line, I will write integration f dx minus epsilon less than by SPF less than by integration f dx plus epsilon. Okay. Now we will subtract integration f dx throughout. Therefore, what will be my next step? If I subtract integration dx, here I will write, here I remain with minus epsilon, SPF minus integration a to b f dx less than by epsilon. Therefore, what we have proved? A number x lies between minus a to plus a. Therefore, may I write mod x is strictly less by a.
Yes, ma'am.
Therefore, here may I write this implies modulus SPF minus integration a to b f dx is less than by epsilon. And when this is true, as we have used a Darbox theorem, therefore, shall I write this is whenever norm p less than delta. Norm p less than delta, or equivalently you can write it in the modulus norm p minus 0 less than delta. Okay, that's what we have proved. Let me write it in the limit form. Mod of SPF minus integration less than epsilon whenever mod of mu p minus 0 less than delta. Therefore, let me write it in the limit form. Yes, what will be a limiting form of the safe statement? Limit mu p tends to 0, SPF is equal to integration a to b f dx. Correct, na? As we are writing like this, na? Limit for convergence of a sequence we are writing, na? Or for continuity of a function. Limit f of x tends to a is equal to f of a, which is equivalent to mod of fx minus fa less than epsilon whenever mod of x minus a less than delta. Therefore, these two definitions are equivalent. Therefore, here I have done the same. This modulus representation I have written in the limiting form. Therefore, we have proved that limit mu p tends to 0, SPF is exactly equals to integration. Therefore, what does this mean? The function is integrable by second definition. Thus, the function f is integrable by definition 2 also. Definition 2 also. Therefore, what we have proved? Whenever a function is integrable by definition number 1, then we have proved that the same function is integrable by definition number 2 as well. That is, assuming upper integral lower integral is equal to actual integration, by using the Darboux theorem, we have proved that the limit SPF is equals to integration a to b f dx. Now we will go for the converse part 2. In this we will prove definition 2 implies definition 1. In this part we will prove definition 2 implies definition 1. Therefore, what will be my assumption in under definition 2? That limit SPF exists and is the limit of the SPF is equal to area of the curve, that is integration. And what to prove? Definition 1 I have to prove, means upper integral is equal to lower integral is equal to actual integration. This is what we want to prove. Therefore, let us write the assumption. The assumption is, let a function f be integrable according to second definition. That is, limit mu p tends to 0, SPF exists. And whenever this limit exists, it is equal to the area of the integration. Okay, let me write it in the epsilon delta form. In other words, to every epsilon greater than 0, there exists delta greater than 0 such that for every partition P, equal to x0, x1 to xn with NOR mu p less than delta, and for every choice of Ti in ith subinterval xi minus 1 to xi, there exists a number a such that, what that number a is, modulus summation f of Ti delta xi sum running from y equals to 1 to n minus a less than epsilon. This is the assumption definition number 1. Okay, that is, mod of SPF minus integration a to b f dx is less than epsilon whenever norm p less than delta. This is what an assumption we have made. And what we want to prove? We want to prove definition 1. Definition 1 says that upper integral is equals to lower integral is the aim to prove. Now here first we will check whether the function f is bounded. Okay, actually, as I am assuming that the function is integrable by the second definition, means the function should be bounded. But here we are proving this repeatedly because the step which we were using for the boundedness, we are going to use it for proving first definition. So let me write, let if possible f be not sorry f be not bounded. Okay, therefore for particular value of say epsilon is equal to 1, taking L, right, taking epsilon is equal to 1. See, actually it's for every epsilon this condition should hold. Mod of f of ti minus x delta xi, f of ti delta xi minus a is less than epsilon. But as we are saying the function is not bounded, therefore there exists some epsilon value for which this relation do not hold. If this relation do not hold means this relation is not going to satisfy. Okay. Therefore let me write, taking epsilon is equals to 1, there exists a partition P such that for every choice of Pi, mod of summation f of Pi delta xi minus a strictly less than by 1, may I write this as summation f of Pi delta xi less than mod of a plus 1. Okay, this should be a statement, but as we are saying the function is not bounded, therefore there exists some point Pi for which this relation is exactly reversed. Okay, here I will write from 1. This is from 1. Okay, but as we are saying the function is not bounded in the closed interval AB, means it is not bounded in some of the interval. It is not bounded in some or many of the intervals. Time being, let me consider there exists one subinterval where the function is not bounded. Say this is the mth subinterval. Okay. Therefore, now what we are going to do? We are going to run up the sum over I, and only for I equals to m, this value do not hold. This is what we are going to do. Okay. Let me write, as f is not bounded, as f is not bounded in closed interval a to b, it must also be same. Same means not bounded. Not bounded in at least one subinterval. Correct now? What the statement says? If the function is not bounded in the closed interval, means it is also not bounded in at least one subinterval, say mth subinterval. Okay, means it is not bounded in mth subinterval. Okay. Now what we are going to do? We will vary this Ti in delta xi. Okay. Then every sum is giving us a fixed value. Only the trouble will be in the mth subinterval, because all the rest because on all the rest subintervals the function is bounded. It is not bounded only in the mth subinterval. Okay, this is what I wanted to say. Function is not bounded in mth subinterval x m minus 1 to xn. Means there is some point in mth subinterval for which the function value is not bounded. Then what for the rest one? Okay, for the rest function, for the rest intervals, one can say this sum value is fixed. I am saying at least in one, that is m. Therefore, there may be more subintervals also, but here we are assuming in mth subinterval that not bounded condition is going to hold. Now, what we will do? We will vary ti over xi in every subinterval only for I not equals to m. Then all the function, all the summation values are giving us the fixed value except in the mth subinterval. Okay, let us take ti is equal to xi when I not equals to m, not only not for mth subinterval, so that every ti except tm is fixed. Why this tm is not fixed? Because at this point the function may be not bounded, and accordingly every term of summation f of ti delta xi is also fixed. Is also fixed except f of tm into delta xn. Means in this summation value only this term is not fixed, all the rest summation values are fixed. Therefore here one can select the point tm in the mth subinterval such that this function value is giving us a contradictory statement for this, that is mod of a is greater than mod of a plus 1. Okay, now here what I will write. Now we can select, or we can choose a point tm in mth subinterval such that mod of summation f of ti delta xi minus is greater by mod of a. The value is giving us infinite, no? Therefore, one can say this is greater by mod of a plus 1. This is fixed value. Tm we will select in such a way that this summation is giving us a value greater than by mod of a plus 1, which is a contradiction. Which is the contradiction to 1. Correct? Which is the contradiction to 1. Hence, the function f is bounded on closed interval AB. Now, after proving this boundedness of the function, we will move towards proving upper integral is equals to lower integral. Okay. Therefore, let me write again by starting with epsilon positive. We will make use of the definition mod of SPF minus a less than epsilon, and we will reach towards the upper sums and lower sum, and finally upper integral and lower integral. Okay, lecture may be I'll complete in 5-10 minutes. Is it okay to everyone?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Now epsilon be any positive number. In the last step we have constructed we have constructed SPF by using UPF LPF. Now we will construct UPF LPF by using SPF. This is what the aim. Okay. Now let me write the definition. Thus there exists delta greater than 0 such that for all partitions P such that for all partitions P with norm P less than delta, we have mod of SPF. It's long, but for the sake of convenience, let me write it's long by 2. This is from 1. This is the definition number 2. Correct now? This is what? This is definition 2. Correct now? Now we will move towards definition 1. Let me expand this modulus. It tells me that minus epsilon by 2 less than by SPF minus A less than by epsilon by 2. Okay. Okay, let me add A throughout, which gives us A minus epsilon by 2 strictly less by SPF strictly less than by A plus epsilon by 2. Let me call it as statement number 2. Now, the job we are going to do, we will choose one partition P such that whenever we are going to range this point Ti in the ith subinterval, whenever we are going to range this Ti in ith subinterval, we will select Ti in such a way that the corresponding Ti gives me once suprema and once infima. See what I wanted to tell you. Let us look at the second subinterval. This is the point at which we are getting the suprema of the function. Okay, this is the corresponding point in the subinterval at which I am getting the suprema. Therefore, we are going to choose this point once to be T1, first T2 say T1, T1. Okay, and this point, see, look at this third interval. This point is giving me the infima. Therefore, for the third, we are going to choose this as the corresponding Ti. Okay, therefore now the job we are going to do is we are going to range, we are going to vary the points Ti over the subinterval xi minus 1 to xi such that once that SPF is giving us the UPF and once it is giving us the LPF. Okay, whenever if I take the Ti value as a point at which the suprema is given, SPF will be UPF. Whenever I select the point T3 as a point at which the minima or the infima is given, the sum will give us the supreme. Sorry, sum will give me the lower sum. Okay, here we are going to write this. If we let points Ti range over delta xi and take LB of the numbers SPF obtained. Okay, therefore whenever SPF is giving me UPF, no doubt it is going to lie between these two values. Whenever SPF is giving us me LPF, again it is going to lie between the two values obtained in this way. Two yields. Okay, therefore again what this gives me, LPF lies between A minus epsilon by 2. Similarly, UPF lies between the same. Correct now? Whenever SPF creates UPF, it will lie between A minus epsilon by 2, A plus epsilon by 2. Whenever this SPF creates LPF, again it lies between A minus epsilon by 2, A plus epsilon by 2. And we know the obvious relation between these two sums is less equal. Therefore, what we have proved? A minus epsilon by 2 less than by LPF and UPF is less than by A plus epsilon by 2. Correct now? Now let me add these two. If you have a difficulty in this inequality, you can ask. Adding what will happen? हे लक्षात येते का सगळ्यांच्या?
Yes, ma'am.
हो मॅम.
इथं काय करतोय, फक्त एसपीएफ ला एकदा युपीएफ करतोय आणि एकदा एलपीएफ करतोय. एसपीएफ युपीएफ कधी होईल, जेव्हा जो एफ ऑफ एम आय देत असेल तर तो युपीएफ होईल, आणि जेव्हा तो एफ टी आय सिलेक्ट केलेला स्मॉल एम आय देत असेल तेव्हा तो एलपीएफ होईल. आणि कधी करणार होतं आपण, कसं करणार आहोत, हा जो टी आय आहे ना तो व्हेरी करणार होतो आपण x1 to x2 मध्ये, जेणेकरून हा टी आय असा सिलेक्ट करायचा जेव्हा तो सुप्रीमा देईल, आणि टी आय एकदा असा सिलेक्ट करायचा जेव्हा तो इन्फिनिटी. ओके, this was a statement we are obtaining, and from this statement let me adjust the terms as UPF minus LPF. What it is giving us, a will cancel from both the sides, and this will be x long by 2, this x long by 2 will be shifted to the right, and this is x long by 2. What we have proved, UPF minus LPF is less than by epsilon. Let me call this as this statement, let me call as 3. So we have proved conditions of integrability. Therefore, the function is integrable by first condition. But we want to prove upper integral is equals to lower integral. Therefore, let us prove this. How we are going to prove? By using the relation between sums and integrals. What is the relation between the sums and integrals? Students has to tell me the relation. What is the relation between lower integral and upper integral? Always
Less equal.
less equal. What is the relation between LPF and this?
Again,
Lower
it is less
integral?
equal.
Less equal. Here it is less equal.
Less equal.
Because lower integral is suprema of lower sums, and upper integrals, this upper integral is infimum of upper sums. Right? Okay, therefore again let me divide the inequality into two parts. LPF is less equal by lower integral. I'm going to divide like this over this part. And upper integral is less than or equals to UPF. And let me add these inequalities again. What I'm getting after adding? Correct. Now let me separate upper integrals and the integrals and sums on one side. But what we have obtained, UPF minus LPF is less than
Less
epsilon.
than epsilon.
Means this is by 4. This is by 4 we have obtained. Therefore, what is the statement? Upper integral f dx minus lower integral f dx is less than by epsilon. But what is epsilon? Epsilon is a small positive number. If this non-negative quantity is less than by every positive, what is the possibility? What is the possibility of the left hand side? Every non-negative number less than by every positive. Yes.
Equal to 0.
Yes, it is equal to 0. Less than every positive rather I will write. Okay. Therefore, this number must be equal to 0. Therefore, what we have proved? Upper integral minus lower integral is equal to 0. Hence, upper integral is equal to lower integral. Hence, it is the proof of second definition. Therefore, what can I write? Thus, the function is integrable by definition 1 also. Any doubt with this?
No, ma'am.
Hence, we have proved that both the definitions are going to imply one another. Out on this today's lecture, you can ask. If not, we will see examples in the next lecture. Thank you for watching the lecture.